Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. I'm just going to be giving everyone another minute or so to file in, but in the meantime, I would love to hear where everybody's from. So where's everyone tuning in from today? And can everybody hear me okay? How's the audio? Let's see. Wow, there's people from all over. I saw someone from Mississauga. I lived in Mississauga for 4 years. Cool. Awesome. Okay, cool. So we're going to dive right in then. So thank you so much for having me today. My name is Sarah, and I am a content editor at Venngage. And Sid invited me today to come talk to you guys about how to create engaging visuals for your online courses. So just a little bit about Venngage. We're a infographics and just general graphic tool. We follow a drag and drop model like Thinkific, and we offer over 500 different templates that you can use, over 10,000 icons. And we are really just all about that visual content. So that's what I'm going to be talking to you about today. Today I'm going to be packing a lot of information into this webinar, so do pay attention. There will be a question and answer period at the end, so make sure to jot down your thoughts throughout the presentation. I may try to answer some throughout the presentation, but I'll probably save most of them for the end. And my goal for today is really just to get you guys started on creating your own beautiful, informative visuals to make your course content more engaging. All right, so let's dive right in. So I want to begin by asking you all to take a little walk down memory lane. So think back to the last really boring lesson you sat through. Why was it boring? Did it involve a lot of text-heavy slides, bland images? Did the instructor have a dull, droning voice? Or maybe, worst of all, did it never seem to get around to giving you the actual information you were looking for? So these are all examples of what I like to call the snooze factor. And that's things that make data and information boring, hard to understand, and ineffective for learning. And it sucks when information is presented in a way that isn't accessible, or when they leave you more confused about talking than when you started. So lessons should get you excited about a topic. They should demystify complex information, and they should leave you with the tools you need to tackle problems and the resources you need to find more information. And you guys are here today because you don't want your course content to be boring. After all, you have already put in the time to collect awesome, helpful information for your audience. And you want your audience to come away informed and excited about what they've learned. So that's why I'm going to give you some actionable tips for how you can visualize, summarize, and spice up boring information. And you can apply these strategies for online courses, webinars, slide decks, blog posts, any kind of content really. And I'm going to be hitting you up with a lot of useful tips that you can start using right away. So you might want to grab a pen and paper and jot down the notes as we go along. So before we dive into it, I want to take a quick poll. How many of you have experience designing your own visuals? And if you do, what would you say your level of experience is? So just put that down in the chat, and let's see where everybody's at. Okay, so a lot of people are saying beginner, pretty basic, amateur, novice at best, um, mostly PowerPoint type graphics, moderate skills. Unfortunately, let's see, ready to do my first course, intermediate, okay. Yeah. So a lot of people seem to be in a similar place. Not a lot of experience. They aren't really sure where to start. And that's great. You guys are in the right place. If you feel a bit intimidated by the prospect of creating your own custom visuals, I totally get it. Because I'm going to get you guys in on a little secret. I don't have any formal design training. In fact, everything I've learned about designing engaging visual content has been learned through reading a lot about design, practicing creating different kinds of infographics and charts and slide decks, and getting feedback from other people, and just testing things to see what gets the best result. And believe me, if I can do it, so can you guys. So here's what I'm going to cover today. First, I'm going to talk about why you should visualize information and when it is most effective to visualize information. Then we're going to get knee-deep into how you can visualize different types of information based on your goals for each visual. And then I'm going to give you guys some specific tips for creating different kinds of visuals for course materials like PDFs, presentation slides, and videos. And then if you guys stick around to the end of the webinar, I'm going to be giving you a shortcut to get started creating your own professional visuals in no time. And then we'll finish off today with a little Q&A session where I'll answer some questions you guys have about making your information more engaging. So let's dive right in. So first I'm going to talk about why and when you should visualize information. So I probably don't have to tell you guys that a lot of people prefer visual mediums for communication. I mean, you're in this webinar today because you probably know that a lot of people don't like reading text-heavy content. It's evident in our frequent use of social media and in the rise in the number of videos being shared. So I want you to think about your own habits when you look for answers online. So barring academic research, how likely are you to read a dense article versus, say, watching a video? Or how likely are you to click on an article with image examples versus just a plain text article? Probably you're going to go for the more visual option, right? So I just want to take another quick poll and ask you guys what types of content you guys include in your online courses. So like slides, videos, PDFs. What do you include? Depends on the topic, all of the above, PDF and video, illustrations, videos, slides. Yeah, so a lot of people are saying they use slides, and that's to be expected, videos and PDFs. Cool. Yeah, so there's a bunch of different types of content you guys can use to make your online courses dynamic, and all of them can be enhanced by using visuals. So you can make slide decks, videos, extra course materials that your audience can download, like PDF worksheets, roadmaps, and cheat sheets, quizzes. And of course, visuals are also perfect for making your course landing page more inviting. After all, your landing page is the gateway to your course, so it needs to really jump out at people. And visual content like charts, infographics, and pictograms and icons, they all make all of those types of content more engaging and more effective for retaining information. So remember, we're trying to eliminate the snooze factor, and we're trying to maximize the impact and effectiveness of your course materials. Because otherwise you can end up with something like this. All right, so this is obviously an extreme example, but nobody can read this. No one should have to read this. You get what I'm saying, right? So you need to be smart about how you use your visuals, and you need to follow design practices. Don't just throw a bunch of visuals onto a screen and call it a day. When used properly, visuals are very effective for making your course content more interesting and for making your information easier for your audience to retain. But too many visuals lazily thrown into your content is just going to make things confusing and disengaging. In fact, A study published in the Journal of Educators Online found that too many visuals in educational material could potentially actually be a deterrent to learning. But the study also found that learning was enhanced when students were offered visual text and added graphics to support text and audio information. So to quote the study, learning was enhanced when students received instruction via 1, visual text and added graphics, and 2, visual text, added spoken text, and added graphics. So you should be using your visuals to enhance your text and audio information, not to overpower it. And I want to talk a little bit about how people learn. So you're probably all familiar with the concept of the 3 basic learning styles: auditory, visual, and kinesthetic. It's the idea that some people learn better throughout reading, others through listening, and others through physically doing something. But a bunch of researchers and learning experts have debunked that theory in recent years, pointing to faulty evidence that doesn't reflect the reality of how many people learn. But what studies have shown is that students benefit from encountering information in multiple different forms. So by combining text with visuals and audio with visuals, people are able to learn better and retain more information. For example, one study divided students into 2 groups and examined how those students retained information through sets of flashcards. So one set used only text in their flashcards, and the other set used both text and images. And overall, the group that was given the flashcards with both text and image actually performed better on their assignments and were shown to retain more information better after the initial study. And in fact, the group with the mixed information flashcards, when they were asked to recall the information afterwards, an average of 86.4% of students actually answered correctly. And that's pretty nuts, but it makes sense. Like I keep saying, visuals make content more engaging. And when you're engaged with the information you're given, you're more likely to absorb it. So I want to show you guys a few examples of courses I've seen that do a good job of using visuals to enhance their information, to make their lessons more effective. So here's an example from WordStream's PPC University course about click-through rate. For those of you who might not be familiar with WordStream's PPC University, it's a free online course that WordStream offers on their site that teaches you PPC and digital marketing basics. So in this particular lesson, they use a scatter plot chart to visualize why click-through rate matters and why it's something that marketers should track. And people can look at the chart and see the correlation between click-through rate and the quality score, and it makes an impact on readers. It causes them to stop and consider the information. And in that same lesson, they also include a small infographic chart to show you what the click-through rate benchmarks are across different industries. And including an infographic like this that summarizes information is super helpful for your audience, because even if they're skimming through your text info without paying close attention, they're likely to stop at the infographic and take a closer look at that. And in this infographic, the industries are color-coded and each one has its own icon, so it's easy to find what you're looking for in a quick glance. And this is great because someone taking this course might want to save this infographic and keep it handy as a quick reference, maybe print it out and pin it up at their workstation, and they would be able to have that resource. So here's an example of a simple process infographic from HubSpot's Inbound Marketing Certification course. And this infographic appears in a video that introduces the concept of inbound marketing. And this is a great example of pairing verbal information with text information, because one of the HubSpot Academy instructors explains the methodology of inbound marketing in the video, while the image illustrates the process. And they actually created several versions of the infographic, one to highlight and emphasize each step. And this helps keep the spoken information organized, and it's easier to follow. So it's a simple but a very effective use of visuals. Okay, now here's a really simple example from Thinkific's course that walks you through the process of pre-launching your first course. And in that course, they offer a downloadable worksheet that helps you define your audience and come up with a course idea that will sell. And they've done a great job of making this worksheet engaging by using color blocks, visual cues like arrows to direct readers' eyes to specific parts of the page. And they also use icons to enhance the text on the page and make key questions more memorable. So in that same course, they offer links to a bunch of blog posts where people can get more in-depth information about certain topics. And online courses are a great opportunity to link to other content on your site. And that's why it's a good idea to use consistent visual branding across all of your content, whether it's in your online courses, on your blogs, your landing page. It should all be cohesive. And here's an example from the landing page for Melissa Griffin's Pinfinite Growth course. So her course teaches you how to grow your Instagram following and use it to drive your business, traffic to your business. And she does a great job of using icon illustrations with a really cohesively branded style in her courses, webinars, and landing page. So this is what I'm talking about. You can always tell when it's a Melissa Griffin piece of content. And here's some more icons that she uses further down the page. So her landing page is quite long, and it reads kind of like a story with plenty of visuals to keep readers engaged. And you can see here that she uses icons to reflect the theme of each of the 8 modules she's outlining. And this reinforces the message, and it gives your eyes a break between the blocks of text. So it makes the page more readable. So these are just a couple of fairly simple visuals that you can use to enhance your course content. And I hope you noticed that in all of the examples I showed you, the visuals didn't replace text or audio completely. Rather, they enforced ideas, illustrated concepts, and summarized key points. So just a couple of key takeaway tips for when it is best to use visuals in your course content. You should use visuals to enhance your text and video content. And you should not use visuals to completely replace text or audio. You should use a variety of different visuals and content types in your courses. And you should use consistent visual branding in your course content, blog content, landing pages, etc. All right, so there's definitely a lot of opportunities to enhance your course content using a variety of different visuals. And when used effectively, visuals are perfect for summarizing information, making key points more memorable, and making your information more engaging overall. So now that you know why and when to use visuals in your courses, I'm going to tell you guys how to visualize different types of information based on your goals. So with that in mind, I'm going to give you guys my go-to strategy for what kind of charts to use for different types of information. And after that, I'm going to give you some best practices for picking and using icons. And then I'm going to talk about how you can combine multiple types of visuals into attention-grabbing infographics. Cool. So to start, I want to talk about charts because there's a ton of charts floating around on the web, but not everybody knows how to use them properly. And when charts are done right, they can communicate data clearly and in as little as 5 seconds flat. But when they're done wrong, they can make data confusing or skewed. And that's why it's important to choose the right type of chart for your information. So just as a side note, if you guys want a really in-depth guide to creating charts, I highly recommend the Wall Street Journal's Guide to Information Graphics. It's a great resource that I often check for best practices when it comes to creating charts for content that I write. I also recommend any of Edward Tufte's books on data visualization, particularly his book, The Visual Display of Quantitative Information. It's a foundational book about data viz and a really good intro to the subject. But today I'm going to keep it pretty simple, and I'm going to give you guys my go-to strategy for picking the best type of chart or graph for your data based on what you want the goal of your chart to be. So to use visuals effectively, you need to have a specific goal for each visual. And I suggest that when it comes to picking charts, you follow the I-Core method to determine what the goal of your visual will be and what chart will work best for that. So I-Core stands for inform, compare, change, organize, show relationships, and explore. So basically, you want to figure out what you're going to be achieving with each chart, and then what kind of chart will best get that goal across. So let's go into each goal more in depth. So the first is inform. And this is when you want to convey an important message or data point with your visuals. And data visualization that combines large titles, labels, and pictograms work best for this purpose. So I've given you an example of two types of pictograms here. The one on the left is where you pick an icon that reflects the theme of your data and you color fill the icon based on that percentage. It's just a really fun way of showing data, and it looks great on presentation slides or in a PDF. And I've also shown another type of pictogram where you use a bunch of icons as units and you use two colors to show the ratio. So for example, say you guys have like a really shocking statistic that you know will grab your audience's attention. A simple pictogram with a big title can be really impactful. And the next goal is compare. So this is when you want to compare multiple things or parts of a whole. And bar charts, pie charts, and pictograms, and other charts that allow you to show data points side by side work well for making comparisons. I've also given a bunch of examples here of different charts that could work great to compare data. So the top row are types of charts that work best for comparing multiple categories or values, like the number of units sold for different models of cell phones, for example. And the bottom row are charts that work well for comparing parts of a whole. So like age groups within a demographic, or maybe where parts of a budget are allotted. Someone's asking if I could put links to the books that I recommended. Yes, I will put those links in here. So the Wall Street Journal Data Viz book. There, I sent that in the chat. And then also anything by Edward Tufte. So that's in the chat there. Really useful resources. Yeah, Edward Tufte is like largely cited as the like father of data viz. Cool. Okay. So the next goal in iCore is change, and that's when you want to show changes or trends over time and space. So line charts, bubble charts, timelines, and multi-series charts. Those are charts that are going to depict change over time because they allow you to visualize upwards or downward trends. So for example, say you wanted to show your audience has grown over a period of weeks, months, or years. A line chart or timeline would be an impactful way to show that. And the other goal is change. So sorry, the last two were both compare. There are two ways that you can compare. The next goal is change, and then another change. So if you want to show change over time or space, a choropleth map is a good way that works well to do that. So choropleth maps use shading to indicate the average of things like properties or quantities within defined areas. So for example, if you wanted to show things like population density within certain states, a map chart works well. And to show something like population change over time, you could use a series of map charts to make that comparison. Cool. Someone's asking if there will be a download of the slides. You will be able to watch a recording of this afterwards. I'll be sending it in an email to you guys. So the next goal is organize, and that's basically when you want to rank or organize data, lists, tables, pyramid charts. Those are all ideal for organizing data, but you could also use bar charts and bubble charts to rank information if you want. So an example of when you would want to do this is if you wanted to rank, say, a bunch of marketing tools by their value or by price. And in that case, a table, list, or bar chart would visualize that effectively. If you wanted to organize groups of things, charts that allow you to group data like bubble clouds, word clouds, and icon charts would work well for that. So for example, if you wanted to visualize the most searched keywords for a specific topic, a word cloud or cloud bubble chart could visualize search volume for each term. And then we have relationships. So if you want to show relationships between different things, you'll want to use charts that allow you to connect and compare points. So charts like scatter plots, line charts, word clouds, and Venn diagrams work really well for this. And for example, if you wanted to show how the amount of time students spend studying affects how high they're graded, a scatter plot would be effective for visualizing that relationship. And the last iCore goal is explore. So this is when you let the reader play around with the data and gain insights on their own. And charts that allow you to isolate and drill down on different data points work well for this goal. And so this is another case where a choropleth map would work great, especially if you can click on different regions. And interactive line charts that allow readers to isolate different data points would also be effective. Cool. So the next type of visual I want to talk about is icons. And icons are handy little visuals because they're able to represent ideas without taking up much time and space on a page or on a slide. And they serve the dual purpose of decorating your content while also enhancing the information and making it more memorable. So I'm going to give you a couple of ideas for how you can use icons for content like slides, worksheets, and infographics. So an easy way to make content more interesting is to pair your labels with icons. So not only will icons look nice and reflect the theme of your information, they're also going to help to establish a hierarchy of information. So people's eyes will immediately be drawn to the icons, and that's a great way for you to direct attention to where you want it, like section headers or important points. So one example of when you might want to use icons with headers is to visualize steps in a process. And pairing the text description with an icon that reinforces the idea will help make each step more memorable for people watching it or reading it. So in this example, icons make each point in the infographic really pop out at you. And the icons chosen reflect the theme of the information. So you can get an idea of what each point in the infographic will be about before you even read the header. And one of my favorite design tricks for visual content is to use icons as bullet points. So you guys have already seen me do this a bunch throughout this webinar. It's an easy way to give a boring bulleted list a little more pizzazz, while also making each point more memorable. So here's an example of a visual that uses icon bullet points to anchor each point. And so when you're using icons as bullet points, you just want to make sure that the icons are all a similar style. So that you have the same line thickness, one solid color or multiple colors, a cartoony style or a more minimal style. And I've given you an example of two infographics side by side, one with mismatching icons and one with icons that follow one cohesive style. And you can see that the version with the cohesive icons is much nicer to look at. Now, I already mentioned earlier that you shouldn't use visuals to replace text completely, and that is definitely the case in most situations. But sometimes if you want to save space, an icon can be used to replace a word when the meaning is very obvious and very well known. So social media logos are one example of this. Virtually everybody is going to recognize a Twitter logo or a LinkedIn logo, and using them in the place of the full word probably won't leave your audience confused. So in this chart example here, icons are used to represent LinkedIn and Twitter instead of putting the whole word. And it works, but I do want to stress that in most cases, it's better to pair icons with text label. So if you're not sure if the meaning of your icon is obvious, definitely ask someone to look at your content, see if they're able to understand the meaning. And if they are, you're good to go. And now I'm going to talk about infographics. So if you want to combine a couple of different types of visuals into one cohesive design, an infographic will allow you to do that. So how many people are familiar with infographics? Just let me know in the chat. A couple of people are asking where we find the icons. All the icons I've used in this presentation are from the Venngage icon library. Yes. All right, so most people have heard of infographics. Some people aren't sure how to make them, but pretty much everyone has seen them. That's not very surprising. Infographics are all around the web. Even if you didn't know what they were called, they're those visuals that combine text with charts and icons and images into one cohesive design. And people use infographics to share surprising statistics, summarize information, and to tell stories. So Venngage actually surveyed over 300 marketers and learned that 41.5% of marketers find infographics and other original graphics to be the most engaging type of visual content they use. And according to HubSpot, infographics are 3 times more likely to be shared than any other type of content. So infographics are definitely a great type of visual to include in your courses, and I'll get into specific cases where you can use infographics in a bit. But they're a versatile form of content because they allow you to combine text with image all in one cohesive graphic. And in the HubSpot Academy video example that I showed you guys already, an infographic was used to visualize the stages in a process while the instructor was speaking. But the infographic could just as easily be pulled from the visual and used in other content like a blog post, social media post, ebook, or summary one-pager. And there are 6 basic types of infographics that you can create depending on the goal of your infographic. So I'm going to give you guys a quick rundown of each one. So the first type is a statistical infographic. And if you want to the focus of your infographic to be data, a statistical infographic template will showcase that. So statistical infographics are perfect for visualizing survey data, study findings, and other data-rich topics. And while other types of infographics may include more narrative copy, statistical infographics really let data tell the story, and they use plenty of charts, graphs, pictograms, and text that highlight numbers and percentages. And charts should be clearly labeled, and key numbers and statistics should be emphasized using colors and bold fonts. So in the example I've provided, they use a combination of different charts and icons to present information in a variety of ways. So you've got pie charts and bar charts, icons, key statistics to stand out. And these are great for including, again, in presentation slides or in PDFs. And then next we've got informational infographics. And informational infographics are used to convey text-based information. So they're perfect for explaining specialized concepts or for sharing tips and strategies that readers can follow. So for example, if you wanted to create a downloadable cheat sheet, an informational infographic would work really well for that. And informational infographics often follow a narrative structure of beginning, middle, and end. And they'll use icons and images and simple charts to complement information. So when you're creating an informational infographic, there should be a clear hierarchy of information that's indicated by descriptive section headers, different font types, and numbers. So the example infographic I've shown here uses icons to reflect the key ideas, as well as connecting lines that create a path for the reader's eyes to follow. And this creates a flow of information, and it keeps readers engaged. And then next we've got process infographics. And process infographics break down processes into easy to follow steps. So typically, process infographic templates use numbered steps, a flow chart, or a timeline to guide readers through the process. And you could use a process infographic to show progress throughout a module. So again, like HubSpot did in the video example that I talked about earlier, they used a process infographic to walk you through the different parts of that lesson. And it helps keep people on track, and it works as a great quick reference. But you could also use a process infographic in a worksheet you create or in a one-page summary sheet that your audience could keep as a reference. So in a process infographic, each step should be clearly labeled and clearly numbered, and you can use icons or illustrations to help visualize each step. And you may also want to use arrows, lines, and other directional cues to guide readers from start to finish, like in the example I've shown here. So you see they've got a circular path for the eye to follow that ends in an arrow, so it gives you direction, and then different icons that reflect the theme of each point. And then we've got comparison infographics. So like comparison charts, comparison infographics allow you to compare and contrast between two sets of information or two types of information. So it could be like two objects, two brands, two theories, fact or fiction, more. And they can be used to compare similarities and differences, pros and cons, different options that people have. And this type of infographic template works well for comparing products, test results, and comparing experiences. So typically a comparison infographic is divided into two columns with one set of info on one side and the one you're comparing it with on the other. And in the example I've shown here, which compares the specs for an iPhone and an Android phone, you can see they all correspond side by side. And the line in the middle uses icons to reflect each point and also make it easy to scan and find the information that you're looking for really quick. Some people are saying the audio is dropping. How is it now? Can you guys hear me okay? My audio is okay. Cool. I'm going to keep going. All right, so next we have timeline infographics, and timeline infographics visualize the passage of time. So they're ideal for when you want to show, say, the history of something or to depict a process that happens within a specific time frame. And timeline infographic templates typically use a central line with different points of time that branch off from it. And you can see in the example here, points in time should be clearly labeled with some descriptive text and with an icon or image to show key information. So this example that I provided here shows the history of Google products as announced at the Google I/O event. And each product is color-coded by whether or not it was a success. And each product is paired with an icon that makes it easier to skim and find the info you might be looking for. And finally, we have geographic infographics. And geographic infographics visualize location-based data. So they use map charts and map diagrams to highlight different regional and population information. So when it comes to using maps and infographics, unless you want to show a series of map charts to make comparisons, it's generally best to stick to using one focus map. So here's an example of an infographic that uses a map as a focus visual to show where some of the world's most popular food festivals are. So they just have lines branching off from it where you can read the information. And it's just a really nice way to visualize information, just give it a little bit of pop. So some key takeaways for this section. Create each chart or infographic with a specific goal in mind. Use the I-Core method to pick your charts. Have a purpose for every icon that you use, and use one of the 6 basic infographic types. All right, so for this next part, I'm going to give you guys, oops, sorry. All right, so yeah, so now I'm going to talk to you guys about creating visuals for different types of content. And I'm going to go into a bit more specifics about how you can optimize your visuals for PDF or video or slides. So let's go back to different types of course materials that you can spice up with your visuals. So you've got slides, videos, a whole whack of different kinds of PDF downloadable materials like cheat sheets, worksheets, ebooks, and more. And while you can use charts, icons, and infographics in virtually any of these content types, there are certain best practices that you need to follow for each. So first, I'm going to offer some general tips and best practices for all types of content. And then I'm going to give you a few for slides, videos, and PDFs in a bit more detail. So before diving into creating your online course at all, it's a good idea to start with a storyboard. And this will allow you to figure out the flow of your course before you get into the nitty-gritty of creating content. And this will also allow you to plan out what kinds of visuals you will use to make your course content more engaging. So think about places where ideas can be made clearer by using a pictogram or a process infographic. And then think about what kinds of downloadable course materials you're planning on including. So it could be things like worksheets, and you need to think about how you can make the visuals in your downloads cohesive with the rest of your visuals. So next, choose colors that enhance all readability. So this is another tip for all types of content. And as a general rule of thumb, use dark text on a light background and light text on a dark background. And the same rule of thumb goes for the icons and the charts that you use. Otherwise, it will be difficult for people to read your text or see your visuals. And so it's a good idea to text your visuals on a couple of different screens too, just to make sure that they are readable. And like I mentioned before, when I showed you guys the worksheet from the Thinkific course, arrows are an easy way to establish a reading flow for your content. So point to where you want your readers to look next, or point to the piece of content or piece of information that you don't want your audience to miss. And so you can use arrows on your course landing page to direct readers to your CTA button. There's a whole ton of different opportunities to use arrows in your course content. Okay, so this one also applies to all content, and it might seem like an obvious tip, but I think it's worth mentioning since we've all seen our fair share of horrible stock photos. So now I'm not going to tell you to avoid stock photography completely, since I know that a lot of small business owners don't have the budget to hire a professional photographer, but I do strongly urge you to seek out stock photo sites that offer high resolution images. So images around 70 DPI are ideal. And images that don't fall into the trap of being awkward or cringy, like the example that I've shown here. So I've offered you guys 3 of my personal favorite sites. They're all free to use, and they all have a decent library of photos to choose from. So Unsplash, Pexels, and Pixabay are all good sources. All right, so this next tip, it does apply to any data viz really, but particularly data visualizations for when you're creating presentation slides and videos. So how many of you guys have heard of the term chart junk before? Let me know in the chat. Okay, so a lot of people have not heard of the term chart junk before. Some people have. Yeah, so a lot of people haven't heard of it before. So simply put, chart junk refers to all the unnecessary elements on a chart that confuse or skew the data. So things like 3D bars, unnecessary labels and grid lines, or illustrations that are distracting. So remember how I said that the best charts can be understood in as little as 5 seconds flat? When you're creating a chart that people won't have a ton of time to ponder over, like a chart that you give in a presentation or in a video, your aim should be to make the chart as straightforward and easy to read as possible. So that means a title, maybe a short description, and a clean, flat design are usually the best bet. So here I've got an example of a junky chart that actually appeared in The Economist. I've compared it with a much simpler, cleaner chart below using the same data. So you can see the first one tilts the chart and it affects how we read it. The other chart presents the data head on. And the first chart also uses 2 really different colors for the sections of the pie chart. And that skews the data, while the second one uses shades of the same blue. So it's just a lot cleaner and easier to read. Someone said, I hate charts with colors that are hard to distinguish. Same here. All right. And so this is another tip for slides and videos. And this tip, so this is basically the time that you allot your visuals should be based on their complexity. So like I said already, when it comes to planning out your course content, flow is very important. So you don't want your audience to miss out on important information. And sure, people could always pause a video if they want to get a closer look, and that's fine, but it's still a good idea to make it so that they don't have to. So depending on how complex your visuals are, some will require longer screen time than others. For example, a simple Venn diagram might only require maybe 3 to 5 seconds, while a flow chart may require a little bit longer, like 5 to 10 seconds. So just time it so people can read it. Yes, someone asked what DPI is. DPI is dots per inch. And yeah, sites will often give you different options for how you want to download it. Okay. And next one is to use consistent color palettes and fonts. So this is a good tip for when you're making slides or PDF downloadable course content. So like I mentioned before, you want to use consistent branding in your visuals, and using a consistent color palette throughout your course content, typically with your brand's colors and fonts, it'll help create a cohesive flow from beginning to end. And the same goes for the fonts that you use. So as a rule of thumb, stick to a maximum of 3 fonts throughout your course material. You'll want to use 1 font for headers, 1 for subheaders, and 1 for body text. And the example that I've given here is from the brand kit that we offer in our Venngage business plan. And it makes it easy to use your brand's colors, fonts, and logos throughout all of your visual content. So there are a bunch more design tips that I unfortunately don't really have time to get into today, because I want to get to telling you guys about your shortcut to creating your own visuals. But if you check out the Venngage blog, we have a bunch of awesome in-depth design guides that will inspire you to create your own professional visual content. So some key takeaway tips for this section. Plan your visuals before you create. Use consistent branding in your visuals. Make sure your visuals are readable and high resolution. And in most cases, keep your visuals simple. Okay, so I have just bombarded you guys with a ton of information about creating your own visuals, and I can understand if a lot of you are a bit overwhelmed with this information. So if you don't come from a design background, the thought of making your own charts, infographics, and diagrams, I get it, it can be intimidating. But just hang on a little longer, because I'm going to give you guys a shortcut to creating your own professional visuals. So if you have no idea where to start when it comes to designing your own visuals, then starting off with a template is the perfect shortcut to get you there faster. And at Venngage, we offer over 500 templates that are easy to use and fully customizable. And the Venngage business plan is going to give you access to our entire library of templates, thousands of icons, image uploads, and more useful tools that are going to make designing your own visuals stress-free. And as I've shown you guys already, we also offer a brand kit with our business plan, which allows you to create and save your brand's color palettes and your fonts and your logo. And so this makes it super easy to customize templates for consistent branding across all of your content. So I want to empower you guys to make your own visuals whenever you need them, because honestly, and I probably don't have to tell you this, hiring an in-house designer or even a freelance designer can be expensive. And I know a lot of small business owners and solopreneurs can't afford that. So I want to make designing awesome visuals as straightforward and as painless for you guys as possible. Remember, like I said, I don't come from a design background, but I've learned how to make really awesome charts and infographics myself just by using templates and practicing. And so that's why I'm going to offer you guys this promo code. It's good until Friday. You'll be able to use the code GETVisual30 to get 30% off a Venngage business or premium plan when you sign up. And this code will bring the price for a monthly business plan down to only $35. And if you decide to invest in a yearly business plan, the price per month is going to be even lower, only $27 per month. And that's a great value. But like I said, this code is only going to be available until Friday, so I do recommend that you use it sooner than later. So I just want to give you guys, I want to show you guys a couple of steps for how you can use templates to create your own infographics and visuals. So I'm going to take you over here. So when you guys sign up for Venngage, you're going to be asked a couple of questions about what your goals are for using Venngage and creating visuals. And based on that, you're going to get a bunch of templates recommended for you. So a whole bunch of kinds that I've talked about already. But you can also search by category. So for example, let's say you guys wanted to create a process infographic for your course content. You can go into process, and there's a bunch of different kinds of process templates that you could use. So like numbered processes, flow charts, customer journey maps. And I'm a fan of this one here. So I'm going to click on create. And it'll take you into the Venngage editor. And from here on, like I said, like Thinkific, it's a drag and drop format. So you guys can just click and you can edit if you want. So you can be like, steps you need to follow. You guys can also change the icons. So you can delete that. And like I said, we have over 10,000 icons that you can choose from, and they're divided by topic, but you can also search. So let's research goal. You just drag it in, you can adjust the size. And if you guys like certain icons, you can save them to your favorites and there'll be quick access for you there. You can also adjust the width and the height of your template based on what you need it for. So if you need dimensions that are good for PowerPoint, you can adjust it to that. If you want to create for like a standard A1 to A5 paper, you can adjust it for that as well. We also offer all of the charts that I talked about today. You can just drag those as well, use those. And you can also upload your own images as well. Okay, so we're coming towards the end. So I wanted to just take a few minutes to answer any questions that people might have. So let's go through. So does anyone have any questions for me? So someone asked, why do two colors skew data but shades do not? So basically when you use two very starkly different colors, it'll place more emphasis on certain sections of a chart than others. So it depends what you want the purpose of your chart to be. So on the one hand, if you want the aim to be to emphasize one section of a pie chart or like one bar in a bar chart, using a different color is good to draw attention to that. But if you want to just present the data from an unbiased standpoint and you want people to be able to draw their own conclusions, using shades will skew the data less and put less emphasis on each individual section. So it's just more equalizing. So someone's asking, is Venngage free without time limitation? So we do have a free plan if you want to get started and just check out a couple of our templates. You can definitely sign up for free and then you can upgrade to a paid account later. But doing a paid account, so like our business account or a premium account, that's just going to give you guys access to all of our templates, to your branding kit, to our full set of features. Can colors of icons be changed? Yes, so it depends on the icon. I can show you guys. So when you search icons, so let's search tree, for example. So you're going to see there's different kinds. There's colored illustrated icons and there are mono icons. So these are the kinds of icons that you would use in a pictogram, for example. So you can actually change the color yourself using our color tool. So you can use the color wheel or you can use the hex code. And I'll show you guys an example of a pictogram. So these cute little fishies here. So you see you can go in and you can change the first color and the secondary color to change the ratio. Just like that. So someone's asking, can you customize the colors of the content and icons in Venngage to match your branding? Yes, you definitely can. And you can change, and you can then save those colors to your brand kit. So when we sign up for Venngage for free, what do we get as opposed to the business account? So when you sign up for free, you'll just have limited access to the amount of templates that you can use. And you will also not be able to export your infographics. So you can publish them, but if you want to be able to export your infographics, you'll have to do a paid or a business plan. Is interactive infographic a thing? Yes, definitely. You can put interactive charts on your infographics. So if we go to charts here, I'll pick pie, for example. You can go in, you can change the info, and then when you publish the infographic, it'll take you to a live version of the infographic, and then you'll be able to actually go in and select individual sections of the infographic. Let's see. How do I integrate Venngage with Thinkific or my website? Venngage is web-based, so you don't have to integrate it. You can just sign up for Venngage, create online, and then you can use your visuals when you're creating your course content on Thinkific. So the difference between exporting and publishing, basically when you publish, it's going to take you to a live link of the infographic that's hosted on our site, and you can then share that, versus if you're to export it, you'll be able to just download the PNG or the JPEG of the infographic. Someone's asking, how do you use infographics as PowerPoint slides, handout flyers, etc.? So basically, you can just download the infographic and you can paste that into your PowerPoint slide or onto your Word document or whatever you're using to create your handouts and flyers, and just do it that way. Do you do discounts for nonprofits? Yes, we have a nonprofit plan. So you can go to our pricing page. It's venngage.com/pricing, and you'll see we have a specific plan for nonprofits. A lot of nonprofits use Venngage. They're definitely one of our biggest user bases. Okay, so we're about at time, but if you guys have any more questions for me, I would be happy to answer them. I'm here to help. We also have around-the-clock support, but I'll give you guys my email in the chat, Sarah at Venngage, and you guys can send me questions and I'll try to do my best to answer them for you. So thank you so much for joining me today, you guys. I had a great time. I hope that this was helpful for you. And be sure to use the code. I'm going to send it to you guys again in an email shortly after this webinar, along with information for how to sign up for Venngage. Yeah, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you, Thinkific, for hosting me. And I hope that you guys have a wonderful rest of your day.